Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. You can call, you can text. The number is the same. It's 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. It is Thursday, March 6th. As of today, the average price of a gallon of 2% milk here in Wisconsin, $3.18, the same as yesterday. The average price of a dozen large eggs here in the state, $6.24, also the same as yesterday.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
We're going to have a really, really busy show for you today. Coming up at 10:33, our friend and colleague from Amicus, a law review, which you can listen to Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 across the network. Jim Santelle will be here. Donald Trump just suffered a loss at the hands of the Supreme Court.
Yes, and with an interesting player.
Very interesting player. Jim will be talking with us about that, among a whole bunch of other things. That would be words. Legal-wise. Yeah. Because we are not lawyers. That's why we bring experts on, like people who are actual lawyers. After the 11 o'clock news, Dr. Calico Schmidt is a veterinarian with the UW-Madison Veterinarian Medicine group, and I've been wanting to do this for a while. I saw an article about a month ago about dogs getting Alzheimer's. And this relates to my sister and I both had dogs that got into what Barkley was 14.
Yeah.
And I think Nina made it to like 16.
Mm-hmm.
But at one point, her little dog would stand in the corner and she would just stare at the wall. I know, it breaks your heart because they can't tell you what's wrong. But if you're a pet owner and if you have questions for Dr. Schmidt, please email those in, send those in.
Yes.
You can do that right now at 855-752-4842. Dr. Calico Schmidt joining us after the 11 o'clock news, then a little weather and wine with Brittney Merlot.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, did they get creamed up north.
Yes.
If you're in Hayward or Bayfield or I think she mentioned Butternut this morning. I love that town.
I just can't believe there's a place it was. Oh, I'm from Butternut.
Butternut, it makes me so happy that there's a Butternut, Wisconsin. So, but then we have a big warm-up coming. So Brittney Merlot will be joining us at 11:20. Paul Noonan from the Acme Packing Company, their sports guru, will join us at 11:33. And then we'll wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it is the All Things Must Pass Eventually edition.
Ow.
Stay tuned for that. Did want to start off, though, this is not good news. Betrayed veterans from the Daily Beast rage over Trump's sweeping VA cuts. Nearly 83,000 Veterans Affairs employees are now facing the axe in the name of efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And we did reference this briefly yesterday. We didn't actually play the clip from a Donald Trump lackey.
Ms. Haba.
Ms. Alina Haba had this to say about Americans, veterans. Calvin, can you play that clip, please?
Well, as you know, we care about veterans tremendously. I mean, that's something the president has always cared about. Anybody in blue, anybody that serves this country.
At the Capitol,
but at the same time, we have taxpayer dollars. We have a fiscal responsibility to use taxpayer dollars to pay people that actually work. That doesn't mean that we forget our veterans by any means. We are going to care for them in the right way, but perhaps they're not fit to have a job at this moment or not willing to come to work. And we can't, I wouldn't take money from you and pay somebody and say, sorry, they're not going to come to work. It's just not acceptable.
That last part makes no sense. I've listened to that last part maybe like 10 times.
First of all, we're going to take care of veterans in the right way. I'd love more details about what that means.
Also, we support anyone in blue, as you just said.
Except the Capitol Police.
Which they're nothing.
No. And there is a plaque that is supposed to be put up in the House of Representatives honoring the Capitol Police, who protected our lawmakers on January 6th as that attack was happening at the Capitol. Yeah, that plaque still hasn't been mounted because they can't decide whether or not they actually support the Capitol Police, apparently.
Well, there are people who actually say no police died that day. You're not correct. You're very incorrect. You're very correct. Nobody died that day. But because they died a day later, a week later, that's totally different. It had nothing to do with January 6th. It was all Biden's fault.
So, Alina Haba, if you were a veteran, and I would love to hear from you how does that make you feel when you hear Alina Haba say something like that? Maybe you're not fit to have a job right now.
You're just too lazy. You don't
want to come in. You don't want to come in and go to work.
And that was the other thing too. People who don't want to come in, this underlying low rent targeting of remote work. We're seeing it in Madison with Robin Voss. He makes a big old deal about it when it's not a big deal. In fact, reports have shown efficiency goes up, productivity goes up when you allow people to work remotely. But this whole attack on remote work from home, that's not the proper road to use when I'm going to say crapping over the vets was what she is doing, calling them lazy.
Essentially, a memo leaked yesterday revealed that the VA, in partnership with Elon Musk's Doge, will return to 2019 staffing levels. The goal is to return to those levels, even though the PACT Act in 2022 expanded VA healthcare and disability benefits to cover millions more veterans who had been exposed to burn pits and other toxic substances.
Mm-hmm.
The VA was contacted for comment from the Daily Beast. Yet no response.
Because the person who answers that phone got fired, probably.
Senator Tammy Duckworth, who's a Democrat of Illinois and also a veteran of the Iraq War, put this on Twitter. Mark my word, this is the Republicans' plan all along. Gut the VA, then push to privatize the department so they can fund tax cuts for billionaires, and our heroes will pay the price. Vote Vets, which is a group that I follow on Twitter. I encourage you to do that. Vote Vets is a group that encourages veterans to run for office. They call the plan infuriating. If you are a veteran or the spouse of a veteran or the daughter or son of a veteran, I would love to know how you feel about this. When you hear Alina Habba in Trump's inner circle saying, well, we're going to take care of vets the right way, but maybe they don't deserve to have a job right now.
Well, Cassandra on the live stream is very frank about it. She says, my dad was a vet and couldn't work because of his military service. With respect, she can shove it.
Thank you, Cassandra. Brief, concise, and to the point.
And FCC compliant.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The proposed layoffs at the VA will deliver a 1-2 punch where veterans are being laid off at the same time that it becomes more difficult for other veterans to get care. This is just going to be an ongoing cycle of pain.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we were told to expect for 2 years. And also, this is just the VA. I mean, the executive order on the Department of Education, they are going to gut anything they don't find necessary. And it's the Republicans. They don't find anything in the federal government necessary. They're going to do what they've been trying to do for decades, which is make it so small it's incapable of working and sell it off to the highest bidders.
I saw yesterday reports, of course, and we had talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Donald Trump now talking about privatizing the United States Postal Service and privatizing Amtrak.
Mm-hmm.
And is it the greatest idea to put everything in the hands of private individuals like Elon? Is that the answer to all of our problems?
Nope. And I will once again give a very brief example of this theory. In Racine, back in the 2000s, they wanted to privatize their garbage pickup. They went and looked at different groups to do it. They found out that not only were they going to pay more in a year for private garbage pickup versus having it be a public service, they were also going to not be able to they were not going to be able to provide customer service of the same quality because it's a private business. So the city can give certain guarantees, but when it's privatized, that's up to them. Then you're on your own.
Well, and when we talked about the Postal Service has to deliver to inconvenient areas.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of their mandate. They have to deliver your mail.
Yes.
A private company isn't going to have to do that.
No, they can change their mind and be like,
you have to come here to get your mail.
We're giving you complimentary P.O. boxes.
855-752-4842. If you would like to join the show, talking about Alina Habba in Trump's inner circle stating yesterday that maybe our vets don't deserve, a job.
No, because I don't even like saying it because like the idea of like her calling them lazy, and she didn't say lazy, but that is the takeaway.
Well, that's the inference. They don't want to come into work.
Exactly.
You don't want to come into work. Yeah. Al from Milwaukee is on the line. Good morning, Al. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. I am a Vietnam veteran, wounded 6 times. My grandfather was in the Army. My mother was in the Army. My father was in the Navy. My sister was in the Army. I have 2 sons who were Marines, and 3 uncles who were in the Army. We came home and got cut off from everything, no matter what. You go to other countries, the veterans are given free housing. They're given food for the rest of their lives. And they come to them for advice about how to approach other issues dealing with war or what have you. In this country, you get kicked to the curb. And when I was vice president of the Center for Veterans Issues in Milwaukee, a Black-founded organization, which has been taken over by all white men, we did a research on the VA. And the VA, after Vietnam, showed us that only 1/3 of all of the veterans in this country get services through the VA. But the VA has one of the largest budgets in our government, and we could not find in our research any place that they audited the VA's budget.
So, Al, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're coming up against the break. So, do you feel that these cuts are a good thing?
Definitely not. These people earned what they were getting, and they actually are owed more.
Mm.
And these people, all of this is about money. It's not about the people or service to a country. It's about Trump and that idiot from South Africa gathering as much money in this government as possible so they can go do something else with it.
Yep. Thank you so much, Al, and thank you and your family for your decades of service. Seriously, we mean that.
Yes.
Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network. We will be right back.
Christmas. Two monkeys like the zoo. I haven't got a clue.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Calby on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Our friend and colleague Jim Santelle, host of Amicus, a law review on Saturdays across the network from 9 to 11. Jim's going to be joining us after the 10:30 news. Donald Trump actually lost a case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. I don't think he's happy about that. We'll talk about that a little bit with Mr. Santelle coming up very, very shortly. I did want to address this just a little bit this morning because I think it's important, especially when people wonder, what can I do? I'm so frustrated. I'm worried. I'm concerned. What can I do to make a difference? This came out yesterday. Rich Creamer, excuse me, with the byline at Wisconsin Public Radio. Headline reads, poll shows many don't know about Crawford or Schimmel in pivotal Wisconsin Supreme Court race. This according to the Marquette University Law School poll that came out yesterday. A majority of registered voters in Wisconsin do not have an opinion yet about Susan Crawford or Brad Schimmel, and the election is April 1st.
Yes.
It's
4 weeks.
4 weeks away. This is a critically important race.
Yeah.
If Brad Schimmel is elected to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, it will once again flip back to conservative control. We've only just gotten fairer maps once Janet Protasewicz was elected. If Brad Schimmel gets on there, I predict they will undo that.
Yes.
Almost immediately, because they want to make sure they lock in those Republican seats so they don't actually have to face their constituents who might be unhappy with them.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because that's what it does. If we go back to the old maps, this just insulates all lawmakers, essentially, Democrats too, from having to be accountable to their constituents because their seats are so safe, they don't have to respond.
Yeah.
That seems like a bad idea to me.
Well, I would say that, I would say that almost everything Brad Schimmel stands for is not a good idea because you take a 30,000-foot view of him, and it's not just the maps. It's his viewpoints on abortion.
1849 is great law. 1849 abortion ban is a great law, according to Brad Schimmel.
Quote, where's the flaw?
Where's the flaw?
19th century piece of legislation.
Before women could vote.
Yeah.
And by the way, he also has, I believe, he has the backing of Pro-Life Wisconsin, which doesn't want any exceptions for abortions, even the life of the mother. Please think about that for a moment.
And there's another aspect to him as well. His viewpoints on the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, he signed on when he was Attorney General under Scott Walker. He signed on to a case in Texas trying to overturn the ACA, which is also known as Obamacare.
And so you have those three: abortion, you have legislative maps, and you have the ACA. Pile on top of that, who's funding him?
You know who really likes Brad Schimmel?
Who, Jane?
Elon Musk.
This guy, Jabba the Musk?
Elon Musk really, really likes Brad Schimmel. He's pouring in millions of dollars into Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
To make sure that Brad gets on the court. And this is my speculation.
Yeah.
Elon currently does not have any company-run Tesla dealerships in Wisconsin. There is a chance that this could come before the Wisconsin Supreme Court ultimately.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be handy if Elon's guy was on the court? Should that case come before them?
So with the powers of the court tipped in the balances of the right, I think that Brad Schimmel being in that position would just help them get, well, darn near everything they want to get.
I guess my point is, and we say this, and I know it might not feel like enough, but talk to people about what you know.
Yep.
Talk to people about what you know about these candidates. We got 4 weeks to inform people about who they're going to be voting for.
Yes.
And personally, I don't think it should be based on how many yard signs you see, but that does sway people.
It does. And commercials.
Absolutely.
When Brad Schimmel is sandwiching his commercials around Susan Crawford commercials, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse.
Absolutely.
With more money comes in, and not just from Elon. Diane Hendricks.
Oh, yeah.
The Ulines. I mean, it is the usual suspects of millionaire and billionaire influencers here in Wisconsin for the right. They're pouring their money into these campaigns for a judge's race, which is going to be more expensive than, the last race.
855-752-4842. Cindy from Appleton on the line. Good morning, Cindy. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I just joined. Are you talking about the Marquette poll?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess Brad Schimmel is leading in the polls, and 58% of the Wisconsinites don't know enough about either candidate. How many years did we have stupid Schimmel as our district or our
AG
Attorney General?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, really, people, are your heads that deep in the sand? The man is vile and evil, and he's spent more of our taxpayer dollars on foolishness than you can shake a stick at, and 58% of the people just don't understand this stuff. No wonder we're in such trouble, for God's sakes.
But, Cindy, I know, but we talk about this a lot. There are folks who have a lot going on in their lives, and being up on politics isn't their priority, and I'm not going to shame anybody for that. Yeah. That's why I am putting the onus upon us to help people understand within your circle what we're talking about here. Elon is Brad Schimmel is Musk's boy.
Yes.
Is Elon Musk's boy. Brad Schimmel completely supports the 1849 abortion ban, which will kill women.
Yes.
It will kill women. Brad Schimmel, thank you for reminding me, Cindy, also spent, when he was Attorney General, $10,000 of taxpayer money for these fancy schmancy commemorative coins, talking about how his office kicked ass every day. A good steward of taxpayer dollars.
And Charles Franklin, who runs the Marquette University poll, will be on Maggie Dawn's show today at 2 p.m. to talk about the breakdown.
So check that out as well. We have news coming up next. When we're back, Jim Santelle will be here. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Not there.
Good morning, Jim. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you exceptionally well, Calvin. How about me to you?
It's sounding pretty good.
Okay, great. I think we're good. I have no
Sorry,
idea what
James.
No worries. You're not cutting in and out. I mean, you seem to be doing well. If
Good.
Jim, you lose connection, just go right to your phone and call right in. Don't worry about trying to get your computer back. Just call us.
Great. We'll do just that. As they say, this is peculiar. All of a sudden, that little blue thing that started going all over, and kind of scared me. I'm scared of little blue things, apparently. So who knew?
You're bigger than that. You're better than that.
I am bigger than that. I should be. I'm an adult after all, right?
You are. All right, we're coming back in a little about 4 minutes. So we'll talk to you then, okay?
Be right here. Great. Thanks so much.
No problem.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Gal B on the board. Coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-8582. That's 855-75 Civic. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Just a reminder, the deadline to register to vote via mail or online for the April 1st general election is next Wednesday, March 12th. If you don't know if you're registered, if you want to check, if you want to see what's on your ballot, just go to myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov. All you have to do is put in your address, and everything you need will come up. It's really a great one-stop shop,
yes,
including in case you're ever inclined to call one of your representatives.
Jane, can I find phone numbers there?
You can find all the applicable phone numbers right there, and they love hearing from us.
Should I swear and be mean?
No.
Okay.
Don't. That's kind of the same rule we have for the show. if all you have are curse words and insults, then you have no argument. So yeah, I wouldn't suggest that you do that, but I do encourage people to call.
Yeah.
And leave a message. Just let them know you're thinking of them. I think that's important.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thinking of you. Won't forget. All right. Joining us now from his somewhere in southeastern Wisconsin, and he is our friend and colleague who has a show on Saturday mornings across the network from 9 to 11 called Amicus, a Law Review. Jim Santelle is here now for our new weekly spot. Thank you so much for carving out some time for us. You are still an acting attorney. You still actually do attorney things.
I do attorney stuff and court things and all that fun stuff, and great to work on a number of different civil rights cases, human stuff, and we can chat about that sometime down the road. If I can jump right into Greg's comment about things we say on the air, note as well that this president on February 18th entered an executive order in which he claimed that, yes, the Federal Communications Commission is now under his exclusive control, that he states what the law is, and that this independent agency, previously created by our Congress, is now inside the Oval Office. A stunning thing. So, Greg, watch what you're saying, not only before, but especially now, because apparently the president is listening. It's a stunning thing. I don't mean to make light of it at all. It is horrific.
And is he actually allowed to do that? This is mine now. I'm taking this agency now. It's mine.
That begs a question. Go on. I'm sorry, sir.
No, it does beg a lot of questions. And the answer is no.
Okay.
And yet, as we're going to talk, I think in the next few moments here today and every Thursday, which I'm very excited about, by the way, to be with you, we're going to talk about the challenges to that. And what do you do? Well, as to the FCC, as to these other agencies, he's likewise now brought apparently under the White House aegis here, the Federal Trade Communications, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the National Labor Relations Board, a part of the Federal Reserve that establishes our financial policy. What's going to happen is we're going to be running into court now, challenging all these things, and eventually leading up to the Supreme Court, which, again, as we're going to talk, is now weighing in on all this. Why are we doing this as Americans rather than focusing on things like education and environment and commercial policy, and yes, overseas international policy, healthcare, all those, labor, commerce, agriculture? But instead, we're running into court, getting judges, requiring judges to say almost across the board, unanimously, you can't do this, Mr. President. And that's the frustrating part about all of this.
Because it seems like, and it seems like to me that executive orders, in the sense of like the FCC is mine, that seems almost like a proclamation type of level. You're like, it's not really your day. You can say it's yours, but it's not yours. The FCC. But now what it does is, instead of, it doesn't change anything other than you having to go to the courts and fight the executive order's language, which now just gums up our already slow working court system.
Yes.
Takes time away from the work they should be doing on actual important things. But like, I guess, because that's what the thing is, like, everyone's freaking out about executive orders, and I'm wondering which ones are important and which ones do we say English as the national language, let's just focus on the important things.
Right. I think that's exactly right. And some of the judges are saying just that. That is, some of these do go to the core, and those that do go to the core fundamentally are addressing this basic issue, which we all learned, I think, in grade school, maybe not, but the fundamental notion is Congress sets up all of these agencies. It's the Article 1 of our Constitution. It's the big one. Congress is the one who makes these decisions. They put it in place. They establish the rules. And as a part of our checks and balances, the president, yes, can make decisions in these areas, but the agencies then respond. The Congress responds. The courts respond. And when a president simply says, as Louis XIV did way back in the 17th century, here's some French this morning, right? L'état, c'est moi, right? Greg, you and I talked about this a number of weeks ago. When the president simply says, I am the law, which is what he said on February 18th, and you follow that, and if you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. That's when, once again, as we're always saying so consistently, we now have an authoritarian government inconsistent with our Constitution, the basic ways in which our government works.
There are so many different ways that this is problematic. And I've spent a lot of time, Jim, because, again, one of Congress's main things is the power of the purse. That is their power. They control what money gets sent out, what gets appropriated where. So that is their big constitutional power. And I kept thinking about, if you are a member of the House, why would you cede that authority? That's the best thing you've got. That's your cudgel. That's your, that's your thing. They can, I can only imagine that they are being promised that, well, if you just cede this power to the president, we're going to make sure you never have to run again. And essentially, you'll never have to work another day in your life because you're never going to have to respond to your constituents.
Right. All you need to do is show up every so often at one of those House or the Senate buildings on either side of the Capitol. Will keep you there. And Shane, I could not have said it more. No one can say it better than you just did, which is you are elected by the people, whether it's of some of the districts in Wisconsin or one of the other 434 other districts around the country, to represent them. If you make decisions, if you vote in certain ways and a majority of your voting constituents say no, all right, that's, again, a part of our process. And I recognize that power is a big thing. But that also affirms the fundamental notion that we do have a representative democracy. If you are ceding, as you just said, that authority given to you by your local constituents, and you go to Washington and say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything other than what the White House has told me to do, you're in violation of the oath that you took. You're in violation of the contract that you made with everyone who voted for you.
If you're just joining us, Jim Santelle is our guest. He hosts Amicus, a law review, Saturday mornings from 9 to 11. It's a wonderful program. You will learn so much. And in actual human speak, as opposed to just lawyer speak, which is a whole different language.
We try.
I know. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on, Jim, this is from Esquire. The Supreme Court ruled against Trump, but it didn't stop Justice Alito from getting snotty. I love the headline. So Donald Trump did actually have a loss in front of the Supreme Court. That happened this week.
Absolutely. And this is a big one. This is a big one. And the important reason it's so important, Jane and Greg and Calvin, that you address this for all your listeners is that this has got everything inside it, right? It's got the usurpation of authority by a president. It's got congressional action. It's got, again, snottiness. I would describe it as intellectual dishonesty. We'll talk about some of the language that Alito has used. It's simply wrong. It's simply wrong. It's intellectually dishonest. It's got foreign policy. And yes, it also has the continuing emergence of Amy Coney Barrett, distancing herself more and more. We've talked about a lot of this on your show in the past from her conservative allies. Watch her in the future and see what she does. She joins John Roberts in handing this defeat to the president.
When I saw that, I almost fell out of my chair. Seriously. And MAGA is up in arms now about Amy Coney Barrett. They are furious that she sided again with the liberals. But then John Roberts did too.
Which is nothing new for John Roberts.
Every once in a while he does something not nuts.
Right. That's a perfect way to describe it. Because, and I do believe, as again, we've discussed in the past, I think every so often he wakes up and thinks, gosh, this is the Roberts court. It's going to have my name on it for all time, history, and maybe on some of these really fundamental things, although, again, he is also the one that 8 months ago gave the president a pass on criminal activity. For which, just as an aside, have you heard about this hot mic at the State of the Union? The
Yes.
president walks over to John Roberts and says, "Thank you. We won't forget."
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Quid pro quo right there in the wall, the halls of the Congress. But again, this is a situation where you've got maybe an emerging Supreme Court, maybe a little bit of the Chief Justice saying this is too far. And so he also, in a very brief order to get into the substance of this is what Donald Trump did, as he promised on January 20th. He halts all programs, all monies for what we know as USAID. This is the foreign aid programs that does all sorts of things: medical care, food, businesses, commercial, disease prevention, political instability. When I was in Iraq, these are the folks who made things happen there to develop an institution, a new government. And Donald Trump comes in and again says horrifically stopping all of that. Now, what happens is it goes to a judge named Amir Ali, who we've talked about before. He's in the federal district court in Washington, D.C. And Ali looks at this and says, first of all, again, no authority, no executive authority for the president to do this. And he orders that it all be stopped, or at least he enters what's called a TRO, a temporary restraining order. And again, tells the president, knock it off. Get these funds flowing once again. And about $1.5 billion, the judge directs them to do that. And again, in the category of this event, this news story has everything. We've got the other major issue here, which is arguably moving toward a constitutional crisis. Because as Judge Ali said, during the course of these initial proceedings, gets the attorneys back in and he says, what's going on? Why are you not following what I told you to do?
Yep.
The attorneys for the Department of Justice say, well, I can't. We've got some theories here that maybe your order didn't mean what it says. He says, no. He says, no. Do what I said, or I'm going to find you in contempt. And it's then that the attorneys take this to the Supreme Court. John Roberts briefly stays everything that the judge has done. And then again, just yesterday, issues this 5-4 decision, just a paragraph. It's kind of convoluted because there's all this procedural history there, which I've somewhat glossed over. But in the end, he says, nope, the president needs to abide. At least he needs to follow the law. He sends it back to the judge and says, be a little bit more particular about what exactly you need for them to do. You should clarify what obligations the government must fulfill. The judge, in this case, he will jump right on that. I'm sure he's on it today. And he will tell the attorneys once again, here's exactly what you need to do. Follow what I'm saying or else. And again, if Donald Trump says no, we do have that constitutional crisis afoot.
Well, and that leads to me, and we're going to come right up against the break, so we'll address this on the other side. What does that or else mean? Mm-hmm. Where does that or else take us, and what could happen if we get to that point? Jim Santelle is our guest. He's host of Amicus, a law review across the network Saturday mornings from 9 to 11. We're going to continue our conversation. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the vast, statewide, countrywide. We are global if you have the app, baby. Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Ooh.
Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. I'm getting all Dave Brubeck, get that jazz vibe. Welcome back.
In the air.
In the air. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Elon continues to actively ruin. Next hour at this time, we will be wrapping up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it is the All Things Must Pass Eventually edition. Stick around for this one. And if you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it into Greg and me at janesays at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS at civicmedia.us. We are joined by our friend and colleague and host of Amicus, a law review, Saturdays from 9 to 11 in the morning. Across the network, Jim Santelle is here. And right before we went to the break, we were talking about kind of this surprising decision by the Supreme Court, voting 5-4 to uphold a lower court ruling that will force Trump to release $2 billion in aid already approved for this USAID program. Right before we went to break, Jim, I asked, what if they don't do this? I mean, some of his advisors, and I can't think of which one off the top of my head, have already said, just ignore him. So the Supreme Court ruled this way. Just do it. Just do it.
Right. One of those advisors, and I think all three of us, all of your listeners probably would put advisors in quotes, is the Vice President of the United States of America, who, Jane, has said just that. He said, you know what? Presidents do not have to follow what mere federal judges say. No, you went to law school. Apparently you were sleeping through most of the constitutional law courses, Mr. Vice President, but you do have to follow that, and becomes relevant, Jane and Greg, just because, again, Judge Ali said, I'm ordering you to do this. When they didn't do it, he called them back in. He said, you're not defying my order. You need to follow what we're doing. And the government comes back and says, well, we're looking at these contracts case by case. The judge interrupts him and says, no case by case analysis. You release the $2 billion. And he orders them basically by midnight of a day last week to put all this in place. And that, as you just said, is when we get to the Supreme Court. The question you raise is, now that we've got this order and we're going forward, do those same attorneys who said we don't need to follow what you're directing, Judge Ali, do they do what they say? And that is the premise. That's the predicate for a true constitutional crisis. We talk a lot about things being constitutional crisis. Watergate was not a constitutional crisis. Why? Because in the end, Richard Nixon complied with the order to release those tapes that spelled his doom. He followed the rule of law, and his presidency devolved after that. Here we have now, for the first time in our history, a president and his advisors who may be saying, we don't need to follow that. And if that is the case, where do we go? What is the next step? What is the next step? There is no further check on that, short of the people, once again, like in South Korea and Israel before the Gaza war, taking to the streets and saying, we are not going to permit this to happen. That's what's looming. And that's why this story is so very important. That, of course, and including your favorite justice, Jane, Sam Alito, and the language there also speaks to this issue. He is, again, intellectual dishonesty, right? What he says is that he's got an 8-page dissent. He thinks that does protest too much, an 8-page dissent in all this. And he says the law doesn't, he says the judge is requiring you to pay this $2 billion, not because the law requires it. Oh, yes, it does. The Congress said, you've got to do this. He said, but because a single district court judge ordered it. Well, that too. And now I wonder if you were sleeping through law school, Justice Alito. We have judges all the time who order things. They taken up an appeal. Remember the judge in northern Texas who ordered a nationwide ban on mifepristone?
Yes.
That was a singular judge. Now, that gets reversed for all sorts of reasons. But when he says it's intellectually dishonest to say it's not what the law requires. But here's the big one. He says it's judicial hubris, he's talking about his colleagues, that imposes a $2 billion penalty on American taxpayers. No, it's a penalty only if the budget of the United States of America and things that Congress does is a penalty. If you buy into that crazy language, then you're right, Mr. Associate Justice. But that's intellectually dishonest. And he knows it. He just plain knows it. And that's why this is so very frustrating.
I guess Alito snoozed through Yale Law School and just became a tax expert.
I think if Sam Alito missed his time in history, he should have been around for the Inquisition. He would have been great. That would have been, he would have been a happy guy, witch hunting and stuff.
Right. And he goes on to say, of course, that he's got this obligation to ensure that the power entrusted to federal judges is supported by the Constitution, that it's not abused. Judge Ali is not abusing anything, Mr. Associate Justice. You're the ones who, by encouraging defying of this order, who are setting us on the course of a true constitutional disaster here. Judicial hubris? No. Judicial support. It is stunning, candidly, that all the justices of the Supreme Court are not voting in favor of supporting the lower court judge. The fact that we've got 4 of them who are still out there saying, yeah, this is okay. That should also be stunning for all your listeners. I know it is.
Check out Jim's show. It's fantastic. He's going to be joining us once a week, every Thursday at this time. Amicus, a law review, Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 across the network. Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Dan Craig.
Is coming up next, and then we're going to talk dogs and Alzheimer's.
Okay.
It's going to be okay. That's all on the way. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Good morning, Dr. Schmidt. Can you hear me all right?
Good morning. I can. You're a little quiet, but I'll see if I can turn you up just a shade.
All right. Perfect. We come back from break in about 2 minutes.
Okay, sounds super.
Dr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the co-host of the show. When we're done with the interview, if you can just stick behind for like about a minute or so, we want to let all of your audio visual load up, and then we'll tuck you into the waiting room. That way you don't have to actually be in front of your computer. And then when that's done, you can sign off and you're good to go. And there's a chat here, and I'll let you know when that happens.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Perfect.
Thanks for being here.
You bet.
Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff, all coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Really busy hour for you coming up at 11:20. Brittney Merlot will be here with a little weather and wine. She is Civic Media's meteorologist. We're going to talk about that. They just got creamed up north with snow yesterday, and now we've got this big warm-up coming. So Brittney Merlot will be joining us after the 11:30 news. Paul Noonan will be here from the Acme Packing Company to talk all things sports, and we will wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it's the This Too Shall Pass Eventually edition. Stick around for that. Right now, though, I'm really excited to have our next guest join us. This has been in the works for a while. Dr. Calico Schmidt is our guest. She's a veterinarian with UW-Madison's Veterinary Medicine. Good morning, Dr. Schmidt. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm doing well, Jane. It's good to be here with you, Greg and Calvin, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We have to start off with probably a question that you hear all the time. You had to be a veterinarian, didn't you, because your name is Calico?
I think you're right. It's funny because my dad actually is not a cat lover. So I was not named originally after calico cats, but my dad is an interior decorator and my mom went to school in textiles. So I'm actually named after the calico fabric, but it works great for me.
I didn't even know there was a calico fabric. Now I'm going to have to look it up.
Yes, common for quilting. So quilters out there will know about calico fabric.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow.
One of the reasons why I had wanted to talk to you, Dr. Schmidt, and my family, we always had dogs growing up, and I've had two dogs, and my sisters had dogs, and we're a big family of dog lovers. And I saw this article a few months ago, Cats and Dogs Get Dementia.
Yes.
And I don't know if this is something, maybe I'm the only one on the planet who didn't realize this, but
Same.
No.
I was like, they what? So is this a very common problem for dogs and cats developing dementia?
You know, that's an excellent question. And I think it's something that we're just beginning to recognize more and more. I read an article in which surveys of dog and cat owners asked them about whether they were seeing some changes in their aging dogs and cats that we have now identified as being a part of dementia. And the numbers came back very interestingly, ranging from 25 all the way up to almost 75% of pet owners recognize some of these cognitive changes in their pets as they get older.
My sister, for example, her little Nina, I think, was about 15 or 16. And in those last couple of years, Suzanne was always worried because she said Nina will pace around in circles and circles
Oh,
and circles, and then she'll stop and she just stares at the wall. It would that have been a sign of
oh,
Alzheimer's?
absolutely. So veterinarians developed this acronym when we first started noticing some of these changes in dogs, and they started out with just four letters, DISH. And of course, we've expanded that by now, but the first letter, the D, stands for disorientation. So that sounds exactly like what your sister Nina's dog was noticing. Sometimes dogs will appear kind of confused. We'll see them sometimes walk into a corner or behind a chair and just act like they're stuck, like they don't know how to get out of that corner. It's
Right.
really sad, actually. Some dogs will be really used to going out the door of the home and know what side of the door to go out. And as they get older, they get confused and forget which side of the door to go to. So, all of those are changes that might suggest some cognitive decline.
Is there anything that can be done for this condition? Because we don't really have anything that's a silver bullet for this condition in adults or in humans yet.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, too. And I think this is one place where human medicine and animal medicine are showing some similarities. So, for example, there are some supplements that we found can be helpful in slowing the progression of decline in these cognitive changes. So, things like omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants have been found to help. Unfortunately, we don't really have any cures, but there are some things we can definitely do to help. And even some of the things that you hear now for senior adults as they experience some problems like getting out and getting some exercise and mental and social stimulation. So, even something as simple as playing with your dog or cat a little bit more, or maybe offering some of those little food puzzle toys where they have to figure out how to get a treat out. Those are all things that can help with some mental stimulation.
So we need to find like crossword puzzles for
Yep.
dogs.
Yeah,
Essentially,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But and you can, like you said, that's a great thing. Though, well, the hide the treat thing, and
Oh my gosh, yeah.
there's so many options now that didn't used to be even exist.
Yeah, I mean, like that.
Indeed.
It's almost like children now too. Like when I was a little kid, the educational toys were terrible. They weren't fun. They weren't interesting. But now even dog educational toys, just like children's,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
engaging. They're fun. They're bright colors. And I mean, we have some of those toys from our dog who's not even two
Awesome.
yet, and she just gets into it. And the question I have for you, doctor, is because my dog is not even 2 years old. She's knock
She's
on
a
wood, has
youngster.
a
Yeah, she's a
youngster.
baby.
What signs can you look for in younger dogs, or does this start to show up at 4 or 5, or is ever? The reason why I ask is because I think of people who are diagnosed with early onset
Mm.
dementia. If it can happen to humans, can that also happen to pets? And are there things we can look for in pets at the age of like 4 or 5?
That's an awesome question. And I don't think we are savvy enough to have recognized early onset dementia or Alzheimer's in our pets yet. Typically, these signs will begin to show up as they age and become maybe what we'd call seniors. So, for
Mhm.
dogs, people might start noticing these signs maybe between 7 and 10 years of age. For cats, 10 or older.
Yeah.
If you're just
So, you've
joining us,
got a
Doctor,
while, Greg.
yeah,
Good. Okay, good.
she's still a punk. She's still a juvenile
She
delinquent.
is.
She's
Wow.
2.
You called my dog a punk.
Well, but she is. Dr. Calico Schmidt is our guest. She's a veterinarian with UW-Madison's Veterinary Medicine. The other thing in the time that we have left, Dr. Schmidt, that I wanted to talk with you about, influencers are a real big thing. So many people now get all of their news and most of their information from people that they follow on YouTube or have a YouTube channel. I'm really concerned about bad advice being given out by influencers, especially on things that you should feed your pets.
Oh, that is definitely a topic we're seeing a lot of controversy. And I agree that some sources may not have a lot of scientific evidence and backing. There are, however, some people who know what they're talking about. So I think one of the first things we can do is just look at the source and ask, where did that person or website get their information? Is there research that backs up what these folks are saying? And if in doubt, your veterinarian is always a really good resource too, and they can help you look into some of those questions.
Yeah, if her name is Becky and her main job is reviewing yoga pants, I would maybe not get veterinary advice from her. But that's just me.
Unless Becky's like, my name is Becky, whatever. I went to this medical school and I have
exactly.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
We love all Beckys.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Becky slap. Yeah, it's not
yes,
a Becky
we
slap.
do. Yeah, yep. You have excellent scientific literacy skills. Yeah, just know your source, and that goes far.
The other thing I've been wondering about, Dr. Schmidt, is bird flu is a big concern now around the country, and certainly here in the U.S. And there had been some early reports about bird flu transferring to domestic pets. Are you seeing a lot of that?
You know, that's an excellent question as well, and I think something that's a concern on everybody's mind. And we have had some instances. I don't know if we've had any patients here at the veterinary school, but I know across the United States, we've definitely had some cases of bird flu in cats that can range from being very mild to very severe. There have even been some deaths reported, so it's a significant concern and something we're all watchful and aware of.
And the main thing would be to keep your cats away from birds.
Yeah. If you can, keep them indoors, keep them in a safe place. It's a little harder for dogs, but I don't know of any evidence in dogs yet.
I would really like to hammer that, and this is going to make me very unpopular. Keep your cats in the house, please. They kill so many songbirds. And it shortens their lifespan, right?
Yeah, it can. And you just hate to see cats hit by cars. Keep them inside.
They get in fights. There's coyotes and all other kinds of things. And
birds of prey.
I had some friends at one point are like, well, it's their natural instinct to be outside. Put them in front of a window.
There you go. It
wasn't
I know people
for you to fix them either, and you fixed them. So
yeah, there you go. I know people who will take their cats out on a leash or harness, so there are safe ways to do that. Or build them a little catio, like a little screened-in porch. Those are safe ways to do it. Isn't that awesome?
Have you not seen catios?
I've never heard the term.
Oh, yeah, they have catios. They're great.
I love it.
Kurt from Madison is on the line. Real quickly, Kurt, we got about 2.5 minutes left. Thanks for joining us. What's your question for Dr. Schmidt?
I have a 9-year-old female Bernedoodle where I need her to lose at least 10 pounds, and she was on a metabolic dog food that proved to do absolutely nothing.
Dear.
I've been trying to research the hell out of this about what is the best food, because I'm calorie counting under somewhere between 700 and 800 per day, and she's not losing weight. Can you put any clarity on dog foods?
That's an excellent question, Greg. Thank you for asking, because obesity and overweight are such big problems for many of our pets. And you're doing all the right things. You're doing a great job of watching and counting calories. We always start with, hopefully your vet has helped you calculate good calorie amounts and cut back gradually. Oftentimes we'll use that as a starting point. Some dogs just have such good metabolisms that they are very good with their calories, and we may need to cut back even further. So if you're having trouble, chat with your vet a little bit, and they may have you gradually cut back on calories further. If the current diet isn't working, there are some special prescription diets that are even lower in calories. And then, of course, just like they say for us as people, get out and do some more exercise to help burn some calories, and that can help too. But you're doing all the right things.
Kurt, just expect her to look at you like, when are you going to feed me?
A salad.
When are you going to feed me? Dr. Calico Schmidt has been our guest from UW-Madison. Thank you so much, Dr. Schmidt. We'll get you back on.
You're welcome.
Have a wonderful day. Stay
Thank
close.
you, you
Brittney
too.
Merlot, Weather and Wine coming up next. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
I'm melting in the sun. This is what they call a life.
Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvi Teeny on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. She joins us every Thursday at this time for a little weather and wine. Brittney Merlot is here, Civic Media meteorologist. You know what, Brittney? You should have been a sommelier.
Oh yeah,
you should have worked in wine with a last name like Merlot, but instead you're a meteorologist.
Yes, I am, and I love every minute of it.
I know you do. You're so into weather, and I know. I was listening this morning on the way in when you were on Pat Kreitlow on Up North News Radio, and Snow Queen, you went a little overboard for some of those areas up north. I understand you should have calmed down a little bit.
Oh, but those areas love it, and they know it. So yeah, we did. We saw over a foot of snow in Baldwin. That's in St. Croix County. Hurley, Ashland, all of those places picking up double digits. I mean, it's a winter wonderland once again on the south shore of Lake Superior. Obviously, lake effect snow had a big role to play with this system because those winds were everything. I mean, they were whipping here in Wausau. I think we had the state record at 54 miles per hour yesterday.
Whoa.
Dang.
Yeah. We didn't even get that much snow here, probably anywhere from 3 to 5 inches or so. But with those winds, you could not see a thing. It was whiteout conditions.
That must have been terrible. I bet there were accidents all over the place.
There were, unfortunately.
Well, I did look at the extended forecast, and at least in southeastern Wisconsin, and I assume across the state, we have this big warm-up coming. It might almost be get out and work in the garden weather come Sunday, at least for southeastern Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you said, northern Wisconsin, we're not going to get that warm. We've got a lot of snow on the ground. It keeps us cooler. But south, oh my goodness. Yeah, you're going to be hitting 50s by the end of this weekend, into the mid 50s and low 60s early next week. But there's a price to pay. There always is. It's not going to stay that way. Come on now, Jane.
Let's just cut her off now. Let's just cut her off now. We lost our contact with Brittney Merlot. She's gone. No.
Don't you want to know?
No, I don't. Okay, it's always snow or a wintry mix.
Now, see, Mother Nature always slaps back. It's like, enjoy this. Ha, ha, ha. We're back to reality. So after this lovely stretch of weather we're going to have next week, then what's going to happen?
So there's a chance of a little bit of a wintry mix, obviously midweek. It's not that significant, but the one I'm talking about, let me tell you, over St. Patrick's Day weekend. So it looks to bring in a lot of rain again, kind of a repeat to an inch of rainfall, flips to the mix, back to snow, and that goes into Monday on St. Patrick's Day. So just a heads up, that weekend is going to be sloppy and messy.
Is that also going to be with most of the snow concentrated in the northern parts of the state, or is that going to be more widespread across Wisconsin?
I'm hoping just north, but of course that track changes as we get closer. So, but it's a big one, and it's going to hit us.
So what you're saying, Brittany, is that St. Patrick's Day is going to be sloppy and messy, and it's going to be bad weather.
I see
green
what you
beer.
did there.
Yeah,
I see what you did there.
Green beer.
Think spring green beer.
How long is it going to take for that snow to melt up north? And I know they don't want it to. I mean, good heavens, what a great time to snowmobile if it's going to be like 28 degrees and sunny. That sounds like perfect weather.
It sure is. I mean, I want to go cross-country skiing out there. I'm not going to be freezing, while doing it. So I think we're going to have this weekend to be able to play in it. I think by early next week, our temperatures are going to start to hit those 40s, maybe some 50s. So it'll start to melt some of that. But far up north, it'll still be there. Central Wisconsin, it's going to start to dissipate.
I heard you mention butternut this morning, which always just makes me happy to know that there's a butternut Wisconsin. I think it's adorable.
Right? Did you know there's a Good Now? I thought that was hysterical writing that yesterday. Good Now, Wisconsin. I was like, well, good now. The snow stopped.
How you doing? We're good now. Weird. I don't know why I sound like a Southern person, but it just sounded right in my head.
Right?
Brittany, you mentioned cross-country skiing. I know it's not totally cross-country, but the Berkey just happened. Have you ever participated in the Birkebeiner?
I once signed up for it, and then when I saw what that track is like, I said, okay, there's no way I'm going to finish it. And they tried their best to tell me, just attempt it. And I was like, you're going to be picking me up with the medical ATV only halfway through. But I've gone many, many years, cheered him on at the cowbell, covered it and stuff. But maybe 1 year. I need more time with more snow to actually, train for
Work up to it. Yeah, work up to it. There's a lot of hills on that course. From what I understand.
Well, and that's what I was surprised when I heard about hills. I thought it was just the 50 km.
No.
Flat land.
Nice flat track. No.
Now, I've done the Fat Tire Berkey. It's on the same track, but you're on a fat tire bike. That one I attempted. It was pretty hard. I only did the half marathon, and the snow was mushy, and my legs were mushy.
I bet. But again, trying to conquer some of those hills.
It's tough.
With cross-country skis.
No.
That's a lot of work, man.
It's the
I'd probably
best
just tired
workout for your
watching.
body.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's great exercise.
Yeah, just like swimming. Works your whole body, low impact with cross-country. But this is, I think I told the story before, but I used to work with a guy who at least when I worked with him, had done the past 20
Birkebeiners?
Wow.
And he'd be like, yep, I'm doing the Birkebeiner this year. And he'd come back and he'd come back on Monday. And he'd look wrecked, and he'd say the same thing every year. As my last year.
I'm never doing it again.
Nope.
He might have had too many shot skis or something in Hayward.
There it is.
I am shocked that there might be drinking surrounding events at the Birkebeiner. That's so not like Wisconsin at all.
That's the goal. Get to the finish line.
So I can have a beer.
Yes.
Brittney Merlot joins us every Thursday at this time for a little weather and wine. Well, we will be blessing you this weekend and into early next week with this nice warm weather. I've got daffodils coming up in my yard already. So, and then we'll yell at you next Thursday when the weather turns.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Brittany. Really appreciate it. News is coming up next when we return. Paul Noonan from the Acme Packing Company will be here to talk all things sports. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Everybody's got advice. Take a snake and take a ladder. This is what they call life.
morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Board Lord coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. He joins us every other Thursday to talk all things sports from the Acme Packing Company. Paul Noonan is here. Good morning, Paul. How's it going?
Hey, good morning, all. It's going great.
So we'll start with the Brewers have signed Jose Quintana. What can you tell us about Jose?
Jose Quintana is, first of all, a very Brewer signing. He is on a very, very affordable deal that will cost them almost nothing, $4 million total likely. There's a big option, mutual option for next year, never exercised. Jose Quintana has been around a long time. He's 36 years old. He's pitched for every team in the division except the Reds. And he's actually been quite the Brewer killer when he's been with basically everybody else. He is getting towards the end of his career. This will be his age, I think, 37 season. But he's still pretty effective. He is, when healthy, and he's mostly healthy, he's good for about 160, 170 innings a year. His ERA hovers right in the mid threes to low fours. And he used to be a big fastball guy. He's not anymore. He throws in the low 90s, but he's been working in a very, very nice changeup over the last few years, which is a pitch the Brewers love. If you see a Brewer who doesn't throw 100 miles an hour, he probably has one of the best changeups in baseball. And they needed somebody to solidify the rotation. It was looking very, very light since Brendan Woodruff won't be back until at May at the earliest. They really only had 4 reliable starters coming into the season, and this will at least shore up the rotation and give them a good baseline if Woodruff can't or suffers a setback. If Nestor Cortez, who's new to the team, has an elbow flare-up, which he's been prone to lately, they should be in good shape for starting pitching now because of this. So it's a positive. It's something they really did need.
I mean, I'm hearing everything you're saying, and I really like that, as long as stays healthy is the main point. But if I was speaking to a friend last night about this, and he goes, Jose Quintana, the most Brewers thing the Brewers can do, because it was cheap, it was easy, and we're getting him, as you said, towards the twilight of his career.
Exactly correct. This is the Brewers era. Like, everybody else is all signed. They're scrap heaping as they always do. They also re-signed Mark Canha last week, who has been on the team before, and at least is good at hitting left-handed pitching, which is not nothing. So there's that. But this is actually a pretty good one. His upside is pretty solid if Quintana can stay healthy. And like I said, he's pretty good at staying healthy, all things considered. He's probably going to be one of the 3 best pitchers in their rotation. And getting an ad like that this late for not much money is a pretty savvy signing. I actually like this one pretty well.
Are the Brewers having money problems or something? Because, but I'm serious, and you know my level of sports knowledge is not that great. But all I hear about they're just so tight-fisted.
They are. So I do think their general cheapness is a little overstated, because they have gone out and gotten halfway decent people occasionally in the recent past, like guys like Yasmani Grandal and Mike Moustakas, who are good players who they actually ponied up decent money for. The problem they have right now, and they are a cheapish team for sure, but they're one of the teams that does not have a solid cable deal at the moment. They basically have a 1-year deal with whatever the gambling company is now to put on their games this year. And all of the teams that have set cable deals for multiple seasons in the future are the ones who spent, or are the Dodgers or the Yankees. And everybody in this sort of limbo with their regional sports distribution kind of falling apart are the teams that have not spent a dime. And the Brewers are currently in that area. So baseball's the same. We're owned by basically a billionaire. I think technically Mark Attanasio is a little shy of $1 billion. They could spend whatever they want. But the way that they run their businesses is like businesses, and if they're not going to break even-ish, at least, they're not going to spend. That's not fair. It's maybe not it's not what I would do if I owned a baseball team, but it is how they all operate in lockstep. So yes, they have money problems in the way baseball teams have money problems.
It just seems to me it's such a Wisconsin thing. It's like, look at my player. I got him on sale.
It is. It's very old school Moneyball that way, and that is their front office definitely prides itself on surplus value that they create in these ways. It is a thing they do, and reading between the lines on a lot of recent interviews with the Brewers, one thing the Brewers do have is the league's best pitching lab. They are the best team in baseball at taking pitchers who struggle elsewhere and turning them into true weapons. The best recent example is probably Tobias Myers, who was, I think, their best starting pitcher last year. A guy off the scrap heap that the White Sox had early in the year, just cut for no reason, who throws what is literally the best changeup in baseball, even better than Devin Williams' airbender, and just took him into the lab and basically said, oversimplifying, just throw that pitch a lot more. Take back the ones that you're not as good at, and it instantly made him like a top third starter in the league.
Wow.
They're just really good at that, and they're kind of content to ride their pitching lab to success at the expense of kind of everything else.
It just sort of sounds like they're happy with being a major league, minor league team. Like they're happy with helping people out, saying you go out in the world and do your best. The thing that sticks with me though, Paul, and I don't remember if we discussed it with you or we discussed it with JR, but that interview that Mark Antanasio gave a couple weeks ago, where it's just the most Pollyanna junk. Like, well, I want to make deals, but the front office says I can't. No, dude, you're the owner, and the office wants to make these deals. Like, you're not as dumb as you're making yourself. And also the whole thing of like, we don't know how baseball financials work. Yes, you do. You're the guy in charge of the checkbook. And third, when he says I'm not in charge of winning World Series, yes, you are. The buck stops with you, bruh. Because if I'm a player on the Brewers and I read that, I'm like, why am I here if my owner doesn't have a vested interest in getting a ring?
Yep.
Yeah. That was me. And that quote was very, very garbled and a little noisy. I don't think he meant it's not my job to not win World Series. I'm not going to put words in his mouth because who knows what he meant by that. He needs, if anything, Mark Attanasio needs better people to tell him what to say. The context of that was around the Christian Yelich extension that they did. And it was about whether it was for to make the fans feel good about signing somebody or to win. And it, depending on how you want to read that, could be a criticism of the Yelich signing, which at the time I think was good, even though his back gave out on him. But Mark needs to just not talk, honestly. Most owners are so good at just blathering on and not saying anything interesting. I'll give Mark this. He says interesting things, but they usually get people mad at him. And the timing of that, with the state just having given them another $500 million to do upgrades that they were frankly obligated to do themselves, I think, technically speaking, is just the most tone-deaf thing ever. Like, the owners should view themselves as having don't do damage. You're not going to be super popular unless you go out and sign a bunch of guys. If you're not doing that, you can only hurt yourself by talking. So just do platitudes. Have your team win. I mean, they won the division last year. Just fall back on that. Say, hey, we win a lot. That's all you have to do. You don't need to be doing all the rest of this. Say, our stuff is working is good enough. But nah, he is not a polished speaker.
What do you think about the new season? We win divisions. We love Milwaukee. Just keep saying that.
There you go.
Just
Mark.
say that over and over
There's
again.
your script and you're done.
Yep.
Boom. Paul Noonan is our guest from the Acme Packing Company. We are talking all things sports. So Bobby Portis got suspended from their Bucks, and the Bucks are now 7-1.
They are on an absolute tear. And so Bobby Portis is interesting in that he is, if deployed properly, useful, but he can also get himself in trouble on the court. And I don't think a lot of this is noise. I don't think they're winning necessarily because he's gone. But they've had a good run of health here with having Giannis and Damian Lillard in pretty good shape. Kuzma did suffer a sprained ankle, but he's been playing. And it's, I think, if nothing else, been a good opportunity to sort of generate chemistry with the new mix after the trade deadline. And Bobby Portis is, if nothing else, chaotic. He's a high variance player. So, he was extremely important to our last title that we won. They don't win that title without Bobby Portis, but he can be as bad as he is good. And they have had quite a lot of bad Bobby this year, and having him out of the lineup takes some variance away, if nothing else. There's some less talented players on the Bucks that get more run when he's not there, but it also kind of forces them to go with their with Giannis, with Lillard, and with Kuzma more, and not appease Bobby getting him the ball every once in a while, I think it's been good for him. So hopefully, while Bobby is suspended, he takes some notes here, and when he comes back, plays a little bit more into the role that he was in when they did win a title. But they've looked really good, and they've had not the hardest schedule, but when they've played bad teams, they've beaten them badly. Like they lit up Dallas in their last game. They played them 2 of the last 3. But they look like they're back to being a contender. They've climbed back into the 4 seed, which is you want to be the 4 or the 3 or better as the playoffs roll around. And if they can just health is everything. This is an old team, and health is everything. But if they can keep the 4 seed and develop with Portis gone and get some other people some run, they can be contenders again. Giannis is playing better than anybody in the league right now. They look great.
I would love to see them kind of do a surprise we didn't expect, have them get back in the playoffs and take the whole thing. That would just be a beautiful thing.
It really would. It really, Lillard and Giannis is what it comes down to. And if Giannis is playing at this level, he is currently playing at the same or better as his MVP seasons and his championship season. And it's just a matter of being able to keep this up for another couple of months. So we'll see. Sometimes that happens. Every once in a while, a team of veterans will run into a run of good health and get it done. And hopefully this is one of those.
We'll be sending healthy thoughts.
Healthy thoughts.
Healthy thoughts.
Healthy thoughts to the
granola vibes, yogurts, things like that. Sit-ups.
The NFL Combine happened and free agency begins soon. What does that all mean?
The Packers will definitely be shopping because they have a couple of positions of need and they have money, which they haven't had in a while. They're starting to get Rodgers' space clear. The people to keep an eye on free agency-wise, Devontae is a free man. And I don't know that they would necessarily want to have him back.
Yeah.
But he does fit a need for them, and that he's a great beater of man defenses, which they really struggled with last year and would play outside. But the real thing to keep an eye on is the Seattle Seahawks are going to trade DK Metcalf. They're very good, very tall, very big, very fast wide receiver. He's asked for a trade. They've been engaged in talks, and the Packers have reportedly been engaged in those talks for something like a 2nd-round pick and probably one of Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks if they can get it done going back. He would be a perfect fit. He would basically replace what Christian Watson does. He's better than Christian Watson. He is still relatively young. If they can get that done, that would be phenomenal. Combine-wise, they need to fill that position. The guy to keep an eye on where he's going to end up going is Jaden Higgins, who's a receiver for Iowa State. This draft doesn't have a lot of big receivers in it. He's the best big one. The Packers will have their eye on him. It's what they need more than anything else except edge rushers. One of the better edge rushers, Max Crosby, just re-signed with the Raiders. That's too bad. There's still a few guys out there, but keep an eye on the DK Metcalf side. That would be a big splash and a fun signing if they can get that done.
Calvin, do you want to jump in here?
Well, I was just going to comment. I don't think the DK Metcalf trade, as awesome as it would be, it just doesn't feel like something the Packers would do. But who knows? Maybe they'll surprise me. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we can bring Devontae back. I think you could get him back relatively cheap.
Yeah.
And I think his leadership is exactly what our young receiving core needs.
I agree with that
There you
too.
go.
He'd be fun. He's a good influence. Dontavian Wicks, who is going to be entering his 3rd year, is a lot like Devontae Adams. Their careers have really matched up well so far. He'd be a great mentor for him specifically.
Paul Noonan joins us every other Thursday from the Acme Packing Company. Thank you so very much, Paul. We will see you in a couple. Go Pack, go Crew, go Bucks. Coming up, we're going to wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it is the This Too Shall Pass Eventually edition. Don't go away. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calviente on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up on the show tomorrow, it's Friday. Dan Schaefer will be here from the recombobulation area. Also, Civic Media's political editor at 11 o'clock. Pete Schwaba, host of Nightlight.
Here we go.
Is going to be joining us at 11:30 tomorrow. He finally saw Green and Gold.
Yep.
Going to have the discussion.
Yep.
About this major plot flaw. I know I'm obsessing about this, but I'm really curious to see if... I know, just a little tiny bit.
Smidge.
Yeah, smidgen. I'm really curious to see if Pete swatted... if Pete saw the flaw... If Pete saw the flaw in Green and Gold, the movie, which I loved, and I think you would love it too.
Yeah.
Go see it. It's a really sweet, heartwarming film, and you'll feel good after you see it, except for that one major plot.
Oh, all right. Oh,
So,
wow.
Again, Pete Schwaba will be here tomorrow at 11:33. Right now, though, 11:53. Calvin, that means it is time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
As always, if you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me. Jane says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS. Jane says at civicmedia.us. This is from WFLA.com in Florida. Surprise. From Rachel Tucker with the byline. Headline reads, Florida man swallows almost $800,000 in stolen jewelry from Tiffany and Company in Orlando. Jathan Lawrence Gilder, 32, pretended he was representing a player for the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
Went into this jewelry store and said, "Hey, I'm repping for this guy.
Yeah.
I want to see, some high end stuff.
Show me the goods.
Show me the goods."
Yeah.
So he actually forced his way out of the store with a pair of earrings worth $769,500, a pair of almost 5-carat diamond earrings worth $160,000, and a pair of 8-carat diamond earrings. Do you know how big that is?
That's huge.
An 8-carat diamond is large, worth $600,500, and accused of stealing a ring worth almost $500,000. So again, he goes into this jewelry store, says, "I'm repping for a player from the Magic. Let me see all this stuff." And then he takes it and he runs. They did stop his car, where he was arrested on a charge of resisting. Also, a minor 48 outstanding warrants out of Colorado.
Wow.
A body scan conducted at the jail appeared to solve the mystery of at least the missing earrings. They were not found on him. They were found in his stomach.
That is absolutely crazy, because anyone who knows anything about earrings, that could really hurt you.
Oh, big time.
And how big?
8-carat diamonds.
Oh.
Yeah. Ow. The foreign objects are suspected to be the Tiffany and Company earrings taken in the robbery, but they will need to be collected. Such a nice way to call it. After they pass through the suspect's system prior to confirming that these are the stolen jewels. Gilder, unfortunately, just asked jail staff out of nowhere, "Am I going to be charged for what's in my stomach?" Yeah, you probably shouldn't have said that.
Florida man.
Arresting trooper reported hearing Gilder say, "I should have just thrown him out the window."
Okay, I have so many. If Todd Alba is listening right now, can we cut into your first whole segment? Because I have
Just
a
continue
lot
this.
of questions.
Many questions.
First of all, you thought to yourself, "I should have thrown out the..." Yes, absolutely. Or under the chair, or under your seat in your car. Lots of things you could have done. Glove compartment. I could go on.
You had options.
If they're just the diamonds alone, you could swallow an 8-carat diamond, I think, depending on
if it wasn't mounted.
If it's not mounted,
if it's just a loose gem, it's not going to be great.
Yes, but it's an earring, so therefore it's mounted and it has Sharpie points.
Yes,
and if it's a diamond, my guess is there's tiny little diamonds too. I mean, the idea of passing it. the idea of the other way, either way, just put him in the hospital and take him out because that could end up killing him.
It's not going to be fun.
No.
Not going to be a pleasant experience. He has been charged with first-degree grand theft and robbery with a mask. A search of his criminal history also reveals in 2022 he robbed another Tiffany & Company store in Texas, but apparently that's one he got away with. That wraps up today's edition of...
This shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, don't do that. News is coming up next, followed by Todd Alba from noon to 2, Maggie Dawn 2 to 4, Dom Salvia 4 to 6, and the Great Pete Schwaba 6 to 8 p.m. Pat Kreitlow kicks it all off early mornings from 6 to 8 on Up North News Radio, and then Earl Ingram right before us from 8 until 10. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers, because without you, nothing works. And thank you, most of all, for calling and for texting and for listening. It means the absolute world. I am so very grateful. I hope you find some joy today and you have the chance to share it. Keep it right here on this Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you tomorrow.